Hi, and welcome to your Urban Connection. Remember, this is the channel that is often imitated, but is never duplicated. Now, why is that? Because as I've said so often, ladies and gentlemen, we talk about things on this channel that others refuse to talk about. And tonight is not going to be any different because we're going to talk about something that I think all of you parents that have students enrolled in USD 259 need to hear. This is news you can use, so stay tuned. Now, the program tonight is sponsored by Squeegee Squad. Squeegee Squad has now added a new service, and it is entitled gutter cleaning. And this is at the time of the year that the leaves are falling and other debris and has a tendency to clog up your gutters. Okay, you don't want that to happen because when your gutters are clogged up, then the water does not flow freely and it drips out onto the ground near your foundation. And continued of this type of drainage near your foundation can cause expensive foundations repairs. Okay, so call on Squeegee Squad and see about having your gutters cleaned before it's too late. Now, ladies and gentlemen, a couple weeks ago, I talked to you about bullying across the nation. It is a growing problem. And as I mentioned to you a couple weeks ago, it is the number one concern of school teachers across the country. And it involves school safety. And they have every reason to be concerned and to be alarmed. However, they also have a reason to take this issue seriously. And in many cases, they don't. Now, tonight I'm going to talk specifically about USD 259 because I've got what I consider to be some damning information that I think you're going to find informative. And it's something I think you need to know. And it's something I bet you didn't know when I tell you about what's going on with your little Johnny and your little Mary in USD 259, right? But first, I want to give you some stats here, and some of these I gave to you 2 weeks ago. I don't want to repeat them to show you how important this issue is and should be to you. According to studies by Yale University, victims of bullying are between 2 to 9 times more likely to consider suicide than non-victims. Now, I want you to think about that. 2 to 9 times more likely to consider suicide. And folks, let's admit it. Every year, about 4,400 people in the United States die of suicide. A large number of those are adolescents, and they're getting younger and younger all the time. And we're talking about adolescents now as young as 10 years old. Okay? There's a number, and a growing number, of 10 to 14-year-old, and in particular females, that are committing suicide after having been bullied constantly and unnecessarily, and that includes cyberbullying in many cases, while in and around schoolyards and school districts. And I want to tell you something. I now have a 57-page report of lawsuits that have been filed around the country by the parents and relatives of people who've been bullied, some of whom have committed suicide, others have attempted suicide, while others have talked about suicide. And those who are fortunate enough not to commit suicide but still be bullied can have repercussions from that bullying long after the bullying has ended. So that's number one. That's number one thing you keep in mind. Now, according, suicide is the third leading cause of death among young people, resulting in about 4,400 deaths per year. However, suicide rate is really high amongst students who have been bullied, and it used to be high school, but now it's filtered down to junior high and middle school and elementary schools, ladies and gentlemen. So you need to know, are your students, once you drop them off at school and thinking that they're in good hands, are they really safe? Or, as in the case in many instances, they're sorry. Okay? Now let's get into this a little bit. Schools and other spaces for adolescents need a strong, systematic approach to anti-bullying and that directly addresses forms of bias. These spaces also need systems equipped to support the mental health of young adults when problems arise, holding bullies accountable for their actions, covering social justice curricula, and ensuring that adolescents feel empowered to come forth when facing bullies or suicidal, or just a few steps to actively support young people that face these difficult experiences. Now, let's get back to that. And I want to tell you something. You know, a few weeks ago, ladies and gentlemen, I was contacted. I'm known for being an activist throughout the city and the state here. And I was contacted by somebody that wanted me to intervene on behalf of, this was a grandmother that called me, wanted me to intervene on behalf of her granddaughter who was being bullied consistently and daily by one of the USD 259 elementary schools. Now, when I interceded and injected myself into the situation, I set out to find out if USD 259 had certain things in place that would allow them to have some kind of control in these situations. And the first thing that I asked for was an anti-bullying policy. I was told that yes, they had one. I asked if I could see it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm about to present to you is what was given to me and identified as a bullying policy is not, in my opinion, a bullying policy at all. It is a basic USD 259 school policy. And it's one paragraph in nature. And not one word in that paragraph says anything about bullying, nor anti-bullying, nor cyberbullying. So I'm going to read it to you. But I want you to pay close attention to the very first sentence in this board policy. And that's what it's called. Student Behavior Regulations Board Policy. The first sentence says, all students are held responsible for their personal actions. Now, as I mentioned to you, the case that I was called to intervene in has been going on ever since the second week of the current school year. The grandchild of the person who contacted me is 10 years old, female, has been bullied by at least 4 10 to 12-year-old males and 2 to 3 females. So can you imagine how astonished I was when I found out that this first sentence says all students are held responsible for their personal actions. For me to find out that this report was made, the complaint was made at least 2 months, maybe 2.5 months ago. And to this date, not a single parent of the 6 or 7 people that were doing the bullying have even been notified that their child was bullying and participating in bullying activities, both cyberbullying and physical bullying, and some of it in the classroom with the teachers present. Now, listen, ladies and gentlemen, USD 259 happens to be the largest school district in the state, but you'd never know it by their actions and their inactions, I might say. So let me just tell you what I found out that I think you will be shocked by. Number one, the largest school district, USD 259, in the state does not have a bullying nor anti-bullying policy, at least that's been identified and shown to me. The largest school district in the state, USD 259, does not have a policy that addresses notifying parents in a timely manner when their child is involved in bullying activities and behavior. USD 259, the largest school district in the state, does not have adequately trained personnel in the name of principals, teachers, administrators, nobody else, to deal with bullying effectively and efficiently. Nobody. USD 259, the largest school district in the state, does not have a team of investigators that can investigate bullying in USD 259 school district. USD 259 does not have an impartial mediator that can bring bullies and the bullying victims into a room and reach a compromise, okay, and solve the problem. They don't have it. But let me tell you what they do have. And this is what I am talking about from experience, not hearsay. USD 259 does have teachers in the rooms that will see and hear bullying activities taking place, and their message to the victims is simple. Just ignore it. Or boys will be boys. Ladies and gentlemen, that's not the way you handle these situations. That's not the solution to these problems. That doesn't do any justice to the victims. And when you have people that are in positions of authority, but that authority does not include any training as to how you deal with bullying victims, they are told the best thing for you to do is to transfer out of the school into another one of our schools. Like the school that you're going to has any better policies, any better administrators, any better teachers, any better principals. No. And all the while, the perpetrators in any of these schools suffer no consequences. So what happens when one child transfers out of that school, and the perpetrators serve no consequences. Their parents are never informed of what they're in violation of school policies are. They're never informed. They simply pick a different target and continue their bullying ways. And that is what has happened with the victim in the case that I'm involved with, ladies and gentlemen. This is nothing more than kicking the can down the road, hoping that the problem will go away and you can sweep it under the rug. That is not satisfactory. That is not the actions of a school district that is on top of and takes seriously the problem of school bullying. So what are we waiting for? We're waiting for another victim to commit suicide in USD 259 before we take it seriously? We're waiting for something to happen to cause permanent damage and mental health issues to students that are entitled to be educated in a safe, bully-free environment. And yet we're doing nothing to rectify the situation. We're doing nothing. We're ignoring the problem. We're not taking it seriously. And like I said before, if this was if the victim was the parent of one of these teachers, one of these principals, one of these administrators, would you say to them, just simply ignore it? Okay? Just turn your back on it. Or would you tell them, boys will be boys? Is that what you tell them? And if that is what you tell them, I have something to tell you. You should not be in the profession that you're in. You need to find a new profession. Maybe this job is more than you signed on for. As was the case where I'm involved, where a hearing officer masquerading as a mediator later said to the victim in this case, I'm sorry, I bit off more than I could chew, because he's never been trained to be a mediator. And by the way, a mediator should never be a member of the USD 259 in any capacity, because that's not impartial. You cannot render an impartial solution when you are a part, basically, of the problem. So he admitted that he had bit off more than he could chew, which, here's the deal. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you something. First of all, most school districts have a policy that once you make a complaint of bullying, a team in that district, that administrative district, will do a full-scale investigation. This case has been going on for over 2 months. I have met with the school principal. I have met with the school administrator. I have met with supposedly the person that's in charge of secondary education. They don't have an investigative team. Now, I'm going to just tell you, after the last meeting that I had with, and there were 5 witnesses to what I'm about to tell you. After the last meeting, which was just 2 days ago on Wednesday, after hearing all of the allegations that was made by the parents of the victim, the question was asked of the person that's supposedly in charge of secondary education. The question was asked, so what's the next step? The answer was, well, I don't know. I'll have to talk to some people. The question was asked, okay, who are you going to talk to? The answer from the person in charge of the Secretary of Education says, I don't know. At that point, I said, so you're not talking about an investigation, you're talking about a conversation that you're going to have. And we want an investigation. Folks, they don't have an investigative team. They're not serious about bullying in USD 259. And if they're not serious about it, your child could be one of the people that are being bullied every day in USD 259. Now, I'm not suggesting that it happens in every school in District US 259, but it does happen in District 259 every day. This is not the first time that I have been informed about bullying. A week ago, at the city council meeting on Tuesday, an individual parent spoke to the city council about his child being bullied. And if I'm not mistaken, it was based on his religion, or it had something to do with his religion. And he wanted something done about it. Of course, city council doesn't deal with that. And he was told by one of the council members to take the issue to USD 259, to the school board. Now, I've got something to tell that gentleman. You're wasting your time if you do that. Because until this district gets serious and puts forth a policy that deals with bullying and anti-bullying and cyberbullying, and until this USD 259 district puts in its policies, as so many other cities are doing, that parents of bulliers are to be contacted within 24 hours after the district receives a complaint. 24 hours. You contact the parents and make them aware. And that's not being done. You see, nothing is being done in USD 259 to solve or even reduce the behaviors and the consistencies of bullying of students who are simply trying to get an education, who are simply in school to learn. Nothing is being done to rectify that situation in USD 259. And you have a right to know. And I'm going to tell you why. I just told you about 57 pages of lawsuits. And these 57 pages of lawsuits are settled lawsuits. So here's why it's important for you as a parent to know if your child is being bullied or is bullying. And here's something I bet you didn't know. See, oftentimes now, these lawsuits, once they're settled, and if there's a financial settlement, more often than not, the parents, along with the school district, are levied a financial loss. In other words, if there's a judgment, let's just say it's $1 million, the school district is responsible for $750,000. The parents of the bullies are liable for $250,000. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you all, I'm sure, didn't know that. Don't take my word for it. I can show it to you in writing. This is happening all across the country. You see, while the teachers and the administrators of these schools don't take it seriously, the courts do. The judges do. The jurors do. USD 259, it's time for you to get on board. It's time for you to implement some policies and procedures. It's time for you to put forth some training about how to deal with bullying to the school administrators, the school principals, and the school teachers. Because right now, they don't have any idea how to handle this. Their solution is to say, just ignore it. Boys will be boys. And transfer and re-victimize the victims by saying maybe you should find a different school. While the bulliers go unpunished, suffer no consequences, and don't stop their bullying. They just simply pick and choose a different victim. It happens all of the time, and it will continue happening in USD 259 as long as teachers, principals, administrators, hearing officers, anybody else that is involved and have so-called authority in the classrooms of USD 259 remain stagnant, remain untrained, uneducated, unserious about the nature of school bullying. Install policies. You don't have any policies in place. You can't show me a single thing, or you haven't shown me a single thing that uses the words bullying, anti-bullying, cyberbullying. You can't show it to me. Yeah. You know, one thing they showed me was this, ladies and gentlemen, and this is a brochure. It's a two-sided brochure. And you know what it deals with? This deals with how to identify bullying. Well, identifying bullying and stopping bullying are two different things. You can identify it all the way, all day long. But if you're not doing anything to stop it, the problem is still going to be with you at the end of the day. So what you have in place right now is inefficient, ineffective, and it's going to cause somebody, some serious mental health issues, maybe suicide, hopefully not. And it's going to cost the taxpayers of USD 259 a lot of money. A lot of money. The last school lawsuit settlement that I saw was in Utah, and it was $14.4 million. And guess where that money's coming from? You know where the money comes from that goes into to fund the school district? It comes out of my and your pockets if it's in USD 259. How would you like to be saddled with paying 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 multi-million-dollar lawsuit settlements because of an inadequate, ineffective, insufficient, uncaring, non-serious school administration that consists of teachers, principals, administrators, principals. How would you like to be on the paying end of 3 or 4 of those multi-million-dollar settlements? Well, I want to tell you 2 things that I think your parents should be doing. Now, I'm going to just tell you, when I say parents, actually I mean relatives, parents and relatives, because like in this particular case, this was not a parent, this was a grandmother that contacted me, okay, and put me in touch with her daughter, okay? But here's the thing I'm saying. You don't have to be the parent. You can be, as it was in this case, a grandparent. You could be a cousin. You could be a sister. You could be a brother. And folks, I'm going to tell you, this old business of you thinking because you drop your kids off at school, which is supposed to be safe and free from violence, from cyberbullying, from physical bullying, but it's not. And you know what? USD 259 is trying its doggonest to keep you from being made aware of what I'm telling you here right now. And this is why I'm telling you, I am talking to you about an issue that nobody else, no other television station, no newspaper, no radio station is willing to talk to you about and tell you about what you're dealing with, and you don't know it. And the school district is not about to tell you. If they were, you would think after 2 months, the individuals that were bullying this 10-year-old on a daily basis, the school district would have made the parents of the bulliers aware of it. They would have said or did something other than to tell the victim, just ignore it. Boys will be boys. We can't do anything about it. The hell you can't. This victim, parents, even contacted the police and made a police report about what was going on in the school. And still, nothing's been done about it. They've not addressed it appropriately, accurately, because they don't have policies in place to dictate to them how to handle it. So it's all by the seat of the pants. And when you're dealing with seat of the pants, more can go wrong than can go right. And it usually happens just that way. So parents, I have this message for you. You have got to monitor your child while they are in the school district USD 259 so you can have a grip on what is going on with your child. You have got to have such a relationship with your child, be it male or female, that they can feel comfortable coming to you, telling you what they are experiencing. And there are certain things you would have to notice about children and their behavior when they're home. And some of those behaviors are dead giveaways to something is not right. Now, if your child is uneasy, and normally, under normal circumstances, they're just as happy and playful and aggressive, but all of a sudden they're withdrawn, something's wrong. And you know that you haven't been doing anything different, but something is wrong somewhere. If they want to be alone as opposed to engaging with you and the rest of the family, something is wrong. If they are displaying periods of extreme anger, something is wrong. If in particular, if this is not their normal pattern of behavior, you've got to look out for it. You've got to start asking questions. Get involved in your child's life. Find out what's going on between the hours of 8 a.m. and 3 or 3:30 p.m. when your child is not in your care. Ladies and gentlemen, actions speak louder than words. Pay attention to the actions of your adolescent children. It can tell you a lot. And demand that USD 259 become transparent with you as a parent. They should not be hiding anything. They should not be sweeping anything under the rug. They should be upfront about everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because it simply won't go away by you ignoring it, not talking about it, not being serious about it. I'm telling you, you've been warned. I hope that you never get a phone call saying that your child has done something out of desperation, out of severe depression, out of mental anguish, because some child at your school or her school or his school has been victimizing them for a long period of time, and you never, ever told about it. It's up to you. This is your child. And let me say one thing to you. I don't care what you hear, what anybody tells you. There is nobody that cares more about your child than you do. And if that is the case, maybe you shouldn't have that child. And I know I hate to say that, but nobody's going to look out for your child like you do. Nobody's going to take your child seriously, as seriously as you do, because you have love for that child. And to them, that child is just another name that has no special meaning. And that's especially true in USD 259. From top to bottom, there has to be a change. There has to be a better way. USD 259 is the largest school district in this state. They should be the best, most safe, most serious school district in the state as well. But they won't be until you take action. And that should start tomorrow. Once you've seen this video, you've been informed, you know what's going on. I'm doing my best to inform you and to educate you, because nobody else will. Take heed, and I'll see you in the next photo.